2025 IDB meeting to order at 11:03. Get started here. Our first order of business is to elect a new chair of the IDB. Our former chair, Carrie Hayes, has moved to Nashville. So we will begin the meeting with the election of a new chair.
Madam Chairwoman, just a point of order. I don't know if that's a proper phrase or not, but under the circumstances in looking at the bylaws, it looks to me like it could be either we elect a new chairperson or you step up as the current vice chair and we elect a replacement for you as vice chair. I've made city attorney aware of my point or concern there, so I'll defer to him what he thinks, but I think the bylaws are unclear, I feel.
Well, I think it's up to this body, and this body by vote can elect at least a chair for this position. If your vice chair becomes chair, then there's an opening for the vice chair spot. There is also, I guess we got to make sure if you wanted to have any other appointments at this point in time, if there were just a move up type situation, that could also be a situation where you might need to have a new, I guess, assistant secretary if everybody moved up in position. So that's up to this body to decide in this meeting, and that's why I thought it needed to be one of the things early on your agenda.
Okay.
So.
I'd like to nominate you, Althea Jones, for the position of chair. Can I do that?
Yes, you can. There is a nomination on the floor for myself, Althea Jones, to be chair. Is there?
I'll second that.
A second? There is a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right.
Okay. So with that, we need to elect a new vice chair.
Yes.
Okay. So at this point, we'll elect a new vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Gordon Parker.
I'll second that. Any discussion there? All those in favor for Gordon Parker as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, Gordon will be vice chair. So then we need a secretary.
See, my way was
Are there any nominations for secretary?
Our current assistant secretary is Jim Floyd, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Jim, would you be willing to serve if you step up? I nominate Jim Floyd.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of Jim Floyd being secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Jim is secretary. And finally, an assistant secretary. So are there any nominations for assistant secretary?
Good.
Nadia?
Sure.
Okay, I nominate Nadia.
Is there a second for Nadia?
Second.
All those in favor for Nadia, assistant secretary?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Nadia will be our assistant secretary.
Now, see, that was easy. All right, very good.
All right.
All right, great. Okay, our next item is just confirming that this meeting was advertised and we have a present quorum. So thank you all for being here. Our next item is the approval of the minutes from the August 4th meeting. I know that those were all sent. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion approved, minutes approved. Next, we'll recognize any person wishing to address the board at this time. Sure.
Good morning, Board. Helen Byrne Sharp, Accountability for Taxpayer Money, wanting to speak briefly about an item coming up on your agenda, and that is the Northgate TIF application. I realize that we're very early in the process and there are lots of steps, but the reason I bring this up now is in case you think there are a couple of issues that maybe need to be addressed before the application gets forwarded to the application review committee, the city council, and the county commission. So this is the first step in the process, and there may be questions raised later. But as I said, I wondered if now there are a couple of fundamental questions I think that you might want to discuss. The developers are requesting a 20-year TIF involving property taxes. They're also requesting that a portion of the local option sales tax received by the city from certain mall sales be contributed by the city to the IDB pursuant to an economic development agreement. And the sales tax actually is the major funding piece. It's about $10 million, whereas the property tax incentive is about $5 million. So my question is, does state law allow sales tax revenues to be used with TIF for a project like this? Your great staff person, Sharita, says yes, and she points to a section in state law which essentially allows the city to pledge any non-valorem tax revenues, including sales taxes, to assist with public infrastructure projects. So she makes a good point there. There's another school of thought that I'm labeling not sure, that's the category I find myself in. A review of state statutes that concludes sales tax revenue can only be used with TIF in conjunction with narrow statutorily defined circumstances, brownfields and convention tourism facilities. So it does not check one of those boxes. I believe you need a written legal opinion from an attorney with expertise in TIFs to put this issue to rest. Otherwise, it may keep popping up. The second question is, does the city need the impartial third-party review called for in your adopted TIF policies before proceeding with the application? The applicant requested a waiver of TIF policy 4.11, which requires an applicant affidavit and an independent third-party review. The city council denied this waiver request. They approved a couple of their waiver requests. They denied this waiver request. So there will be a third-party review, and there is an applicant affidavit in the application, which basically the applicant certified they would not undertake the project unless the requested incentive was provided because it would not result in a reasonable return on investment. One of the purposes of the independent third-party review is to evaluate the applicant's financial projections for the project, to evaluate whether the amount and allocation period they request is required for them to receive a commercially reasonable return on investment with respect to the project. I believe this review needs to happen first. It may or may not change the amount or the allocation period, but it seems like we need to know. The city used this tool in a recent TIF, and my understanding is that it lowered the amount of the taxpayer subsidy. Might not here, but it might. So anyway, it's a timing issue. I know timing is always critical. I wondered if the staff makes the case that timing is critical, that you all could theoretically continue this meeting. You wouldn't have to wait till your next monthly meeting. You could continue it to a date certain. If the city thinks they will have this written legal opinion and a third-party opinion in the not too distant future. So thank you for your consideration. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Sharp?
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Next item is the quarterly finance report presented by Ms. Eleanor Liu.
Good morning, members of the board. Eleanor Liu, Finance Department of City of Chattanooga. I have a few reports to present. The very first one is the longest one, that's the BW grant. Actually, there's no change at all since July when I presented the same report. Everything still stays the same. Percent of spend encumbered and the contingency is still at 99.0%. Okay, let's go on to the second report. Second one is the IDB Economic Development Program Summary. For that one, in total of all the funds we have, remaining balance to spend right now it stands at $2,045,000. If I may, I will actually briefly touch on the agenda. Number 13, there's a confirmation for the $588,000. that dollar amount has been received, and if you look at the column for Fund 14, that $1,584,000, that balance does include that particular transfer of $588,000.
Where was the transfer from?
That was previous balance held at CNE, Small Business Funds, for many years. I believe they finished with the activities in that and has been sitting in the fund for a few months, and it was determined to be transferred back to the IDB.
Okay.
So that transaction actually was concluded August 15th. So I just want to point out to you that $1.5 million does include that balance transfer. Okay, if no question, let's move on to the next report, the TIF. Again, this TIF report is exactly the same as the one I presented to you back in July. All right, the next report is the wastewater program summary. This time, we see there are two programs right now we're running. One is E2I2, one is SPOI, and both programs right now are really high activities. To date, we spent about $33 million. Of course, this is like pass-through, so whatever we spend, IDB spend, we'll get a reimbursement 100% from the city of Chattanooga. And so far, we have received every single penny of it. Okay, that concludes the audit report. But I do need to bring your attention to a letter from the State Controller's Office. Give a little bit of history. Back in FY23, we recorded a accounts payable for interest of $313,000. And the end of that report, the State Controller sent us a letter, said we should not report a negative net position. So we made a correction. We removed it from the statement, and we include that $313,000 interest payment into the note section of the finance report. So far, so good. Except when I removed that from the statement, I use a language called prior period adjustment. And just so happened last year was the first year we adopted a GASB statement 100. In that report, in that standard says the prior period adjustment cannot be used, should be used error correction. So for that, we got the letter this July. So in this year, FY25 financial statement, we made that correction. We changed the wording to the error correction. So I just want to bring that letter to your attention and to ensure that we have made the correction in this year's financial report.
Eleanor, that'll be corrected on any future reports, right?
Actually, it will only show up once because in our financial statement, we showed prior year and current year. Mm-hmm. The correction was made on prior year.
Okay.
So by next year roll around, we won't have this correction anymore, so we shouldn't be seeing it again.
Okay. And we won't do it as a note on the future.
We try not making
Okay,
mistakes.
all right, no problem, thanks.
Any questions I can answer? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Liu. Okay, our next agenda item is the Northgate Mall TIF. This item has two parts.
Thank you.
The first part is a resolution accepting the application and attachments from Hickson Mall LLC and BI Developments LLC for a tax increment incentive and authorizing the submission of the tax increment incentive application for the Northgate Mall redevelopment project to the Chattanooga City Council and Hamilton County Commission to adopt a resolution of intent to consider an economic impact plan.
Correct.
Start with that one. Thank you, Sharita.
Good morning, IDB members. Sharita Allen, Senior Advisor for Economic and Workforce Development here at the city. I have included in your packets a staff report. That's just a one-page overview of the item on which we're speaking today. Staff is recommending to approve accepting the application. We list in that staff report the authorizing state statutes for that. We include the city-county policies, and then we will go through the presentation after that. We talk a little bit about the alignment with economic development plans in the staff report, including alignment with the RPA plan for regional centers and corridor approaches. We talk a little bit about the RPA City Council adopted plan in 2003, which encourages the revitalization of existing commercial centers. And then we talk a little bit about the Plan Chattanooga Hickson Red Bank plan that's in draft form from 2024, which talks about facilitating redevelopment of Northgate Mall and surrounding commercial areas into a compact walkable center. And so those will be in the presentation once we get that pulled up. But in the meantime, we will talk a little bit about the project and how we got where we are. We've got it.
The city council did not approve that.
Okay.
Third-party review waiver, so just be aware of that.
Correct presentation, wrong cover. So here we are. So we're talking about the proposed Northgate Mall TIF. What's the city's vested interest in the infrastructure? The first piece, if you look at this particular graphic, the orange areas show the stormwater runoff, and then which is city infrastructure. And then if you look at the gray box in the center, that is Northgate Mall property. And so that's a private sewer infrastructure. And so as it stands now, we have public infrastructure flowing into a private system. We're looking at our vested interest from a public health standpoint, where that public infrastructure to fail, the public infrastructure then becomes the city's responsibility. We're looking at the benefit from accessing private capital. This would be a public-private partnership in that the developer would do a city-backed TIF that would fund the infrastructure upfront, and they're asking for the public sales tax and the local option, public property tax and local option sales tax to repay the fronting of that particular infrastructure. Accelerating project timelines, we're looking at proposed construction, which would be January 1 of 2027, completion January 1 of 2028. That would be ahead of any capital project that the city would have. It would be ahead of any capital project that wastewater would have as well. And then sharing risk. Again, we'll talk a little bit in this presentation about public-private partnerships. Economic development standpoint, we're going to go over with you some of the benefits for revitalizing the mall as it relates to previous sales taxes and how those have dipped, and previous property taxes and how those have dipped as well. And then looking at enhancing future revenue streams. Again, rebuilding existing infrastructure, looking forward to future development. What that development looks like is all based on the existing infrastructure and the future infrastructure that's in place. Let's talk a little bit about it. We talked a little bit about the history. So it was once a thriving urban center. It was a center of activity. It was built in 1968 with a private sewer system. Hickson at one point was annexed into the city of Chattanooga in 1973. And so when that annexation happened, it still remained a public infrastructure system. It did not come into public infrastructure. Current status, there has been some existing redevelopment of the mall. That is limited based on the laterals and the existing infrastructure. So again, what that looks like is small standalone development on the perimeter. If we would ever want to have, for instance, multifamily housing or revitalized town center, if you wanted to do Class A office buildings, those require upgraded and replaced infrastructure, and that's currently not viable with this particular private system. And so again, take a little, we give you some numbers here talking about the dip in appraised value. So 2017, looking at that $50 million figure, 2024 currently appraised at $28 million. And why that's important to us as a city and as the Industrial Development Board is that's a loss of property taxes when you look at that. And then looking down at the sales tax piece, looking how sales taxes have declined from their peak. And the developer will present after this, and he will talk a little bit about these numbers as well. But again, that loss in sales tax revenue is a loss in sales tax that goes into our general fund that funds some of our operations for the city of Chattanooga. So again, we're looking at it from, these are two revenue sources that impact our city services overall, and we have seen a steady decline in this particular region. And we say region because it's not just Northgate Mall proper. There are 13 private-owned properties around it that also generate sales tax and property tax that go to the city of Chattanooga. Talked a little bit about the benefit. This is a proposed TIF boundary, and again, this includes Northgate proper and some private property owners. You see there the clover leaf that's in the top corner there. That clover leaf is where the stormwater and public rights-of-way feed into the private system. And so again, it's upgrading and replacing the infrastructure. There's a public safety aspect to it for the city. It's achieving a vision of town center. Again, as malls are being redeveloped, and I will point to a couple of malls that are in this particular presentation. As malls are being redeveloped, they're not being redeveloped solely for retail. There are other functions that are happening there. The multifamily, the mixed use, there's some other services that happen with it. You'll also see in the upper right corner, the tail end of that TIF boundary. That's a Northgate Public Library, which is at the end of its life. So at some point, that library will be redeveloped in the next 3 to 5 years as well. And then looking finally, new sewer and stormwater infrastructure would be dedicated to the city after completion. So again, private system, replaced, upgraded to city standards. There's a component which is owned by the Hickson Utility District. It would be built to Hickson Utility District standards. That would be dedicated over to them. Staff did have conversations with the utility district. They did not have in their capital budget or their capital plan any projections to replace any of their water lines for the next 3 to 5 years. The same with the city infrastructure. It's not in the capital plan for replacing in the next 3 to 5 years as well. And then let's talk a little bit about the TIF. I mean, this board has worked on a number of TIFs in the past and understands the process, but again, it is looking at the property taxes in the existing boundaries of the TIF district. That's that green portion in this graph. Whatever is currently being paid in property taxes will continue to be paid. As a property gets redeveloped, there's that orange piece, that's the increment. That only happens if the developer builds the infrastructure that encourages future development. So it's not just putting in infrastructure and having it sit. It's putting in infrastructure to drive future growth. That future growth, that's the tax increment. That's what's discretionary. And so that's what this TIF is about, these next 5 and 6 steps to get a proposed TIF in place. That's looking at how much is that increment, what does it look like, how much of it is a project entitled to pursue, and how do we make that happen? And then at the end of the proposed 20-year term, that green piece, that's where all of that extra valuation, that extra TIF increment, that comes back to the city. And so again, it's looking at, we're getting taxes, we know we're receiving those, they have historically been declining, and they will probably continue to decline without significant investment and development. How do we put in the infrastructure to encourage that orange piece to happen so that as we get to the end of it, we get all of the green afterwards? And so that's kind of what this graph looks like. And again, the discretionary piece is what's in orange. And then we talk about the waivers. So this is the presentation that was presented to City Council last week. We went to City Council, we asked for waivers of certain policies, and the city, by the TIF policies that were approved by City Council, they're allowed to waive any and all policies as they determine. We asked for these 3 waivers, they waived the first 2, and the last one was that independent third-party review. And so the City Council said, you know what, we still want that. Like we get timing is of the essence, and we understand all the other pieces, but that's something that the city council was not willing to waive. And so our TIF council I get city council and TIF council mixed up sometimes. So our TIF legal team is already reaching out to a third-party reviewer to provide that. It's not a reviewer that we've worked with in the past, so it will not be Young and Associates, it will not be our current legal team, it's an outside third party. So they've already reached out for that. What's required for that is that piece be in place when we get to the point where we are negotiating the EIP, and that's what happens in November. That's November 3rd. And so the economic impact plan, and that's in another presentation. The economic impact plan is a legal document. And so on November 3rd, that's when the IDB will see that legal document. And that requires a public hearing that'll happen here, and then it goes to city council and it goes to county commission if applicable. And then the final step is it will come back to the IDB. And so what's important for us is that third-party review piece, we need to have that by November 3rd, which is when we will start looking at what are the numbers. That's where, and I'll give you the four main pieces of the EIP. That's where we're identifying the boundaries. Do we have the boundaries that we need, or do they need to be changed? We're identifying the location of the project. We're talking about the benefits to the municipality. We're talking about the anticipated tax receipts. We're talking about job creation. All of those are the legal components that will go into the EIP. Again, that's November 3rd. So that third-party piece, we don't need that today, but we need that before November 3rd, which is where we start looking at the legal document. So for today, what we're asking is accept the application as complete to start the process, set a date for an application review committee, appoint 2 members from the IDB, keeping in mind the mayor will designate 2 members, city council will designate 2 members, and there will be a member for the chamber. Those are the pieces that we're asking for today to start the process. And so there is an affidavit in the application which says from the company that that this infrastructure is needed to make the project happen. And this third-party review, which we're saying we will have by the November 3rd EIP draft, that piece will verify that affidavit. So for that one, what we're saying is we don't need that now, but we do need it before we get to the EIP portion. And then let's talk a little bit about the public-private partnership. Some of you have seen some of these before. You voted for some of these. We're about to have a public hearing to amend one of these. And again, this is the public-private partnership and how that works for the city and the IDB. It's a contractual agreement between a public agency and a private sector entity. And so in addition to sharing resources, we're also sharing the risk. And so I'll give you this first example, the ML King Blue Goose Hollow TIF. So this one, the developer came to us. The developer was going through the land development office process. The developer was working with CDOT, Chattanooga Department of Transportation. And someone in that department said, hey, just so you know, if you maintain ownership of this and you close off this boulevard, the public will not have access to the Riverwalk. And the city and the county had just spent tens of millions on that particular portion of the Riverwalk. And so that's where that public-private partnership came to play. And it was, there's a public benefit, we'd like to partner with you, or a developer, would you partner with us to make sure the public benefit is maintained? And so this was a TIF, roughly a $4 million TIF, that allowed extension of ML King Boulevard to the Riverwalk, and it also provided parking, landscaping, infrastructure, all of those other pieces that go along with that sort of public piece. Access Road TIF, and I know we have a public hearing on that one here shortly. Again, this was infrastructure that the city never would have funded on the front end. It never would have acquired the rights of way to do that. It worked with a developer who was doing a project in the area, and we said, hey, just so you know, there's a soccer complex and there's limited roadway and access, and there's no signaling, so people are coming out of this road, they're making left turn against 4-lane traffic, there's no signaling. We'd like to revitalize that infrastructure. It's not something that was in the capital plan and probably would not have been for a long time. But again, developer at the table, developing a project, and we said, would you consider building out our infrastructure? We'll provide increment to repay you for that, and that's where we're seeing this piece. So again, looking at how public-private partnerships work, there's a public benefit for us, for the city and the IDB on the Northgate Mall tip, because again, we have public infrastructure that is flowing into a private system, and were the private system to ever fail, we then are in a critical standpoint to say, now we have to address this public system on our own, on our dime, on our time frame. What would that look like absent a public-private partnership where you already have a developer who's doing work in and around that area? And again, I talked a little bit about this while we were waiting for the presentation to load. And again, this is just project alignment. And so how this works is when the chamber has a plan or RPA has a plan, there's a Plan Hamilton, when those plans are put together with public input, those plans then get disseminated to all of the economic development entities that are located in our ecosystem. We then flag the ones where we feel like there might be a potential P3 that's involved. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes it aligns, sometimes it doesn't. But again, when you start to look at the Hickson Red Bank plan, I mean, it points out, there's a section and a bullet point that says, facilitate the redevelopment of Northgate Mall. Well, what does that facilitation look like? It could be private, it could be public dollars that go directly into it. It could be public infrastructure that goes into it. It could be the facilitation of a high-rise project that includes a public library into it. It could look like any number of things. But what's important is that we flag these items, and as they come to us, we bring them forward to the elected bodies for the elected bodies to decide whether these are projects that we want to see happen moving forward. And then again, these are some recent, one of those is not so recent because it's 2007, but these are other Tennessee shopping mall, shopping center tip projects. And again, you're looking at Rivergate, $42 million tip, Oak Ridge, that's a $13 million tip, Bellevue, 10, Eastone Commons, Kingsport, $9.5 million tip. These are for, some of them are infrastructure, some of them are vertical construction, some of them are demolition. They're just total, use our dollars to demolish this eyesore that's been vacant and abandoned. Just take it off. So again, all of these TIFs are a little different, and so the proposed TIF we're bringing to the table is a combination of some of those, but at its core, it's infrastructure. So that if you want to redevelop it to an outside type mall, if you want to have a town center, if you want to have multifamily housing, if you want to have a hotel, none of that could happen with the existing infrastructure at the core of the facility. Okay, and then the proposed timeline, kind of where we are with everything. Need glasses for this one. Okay, so we just finished the Tuesday piece with the council where we basically went to them and said, this is a TIF. It's not like previous TIFs you've done. It doesn't have a big project attached to it that's generating increment. It's mainly for infrastructure. It's going to be using property tax and local sales tax from smaller projects that are happening in and around it. It's different. We need some waivers. And so again, without those waivers, this application would not have been able to come forward to this particular board. So the council, again, approved 2 of those waivers, said no to the other one. We're moving forward and we're reaching out and we will comply. Obviously, the applicant will comply with that. And then again, here we are accepting the application and the $8,000 application fee that goes along with that. That fee can cover any resources or any studies or special items that the IDB might need to review this particular application. And then the Tuesday the 14th, we would go back to City Council, reviewing it for TIP. Again, those are all the steps. There's a proposed application committee that has to happen on October 20th. That's where roughly you've got 7 people sitting around the table in the J.B. Collins meeting room for 2 hours, and they're just reviewing the TIF application. They're asking every single question about every single answer. They're looking at all of the studies. They're looking at all of the supporting documents to say, okay, we get it. We've asked all the questions. There's a reporter that attends that meeting that takes notes, and then anything that comes out of that meeting gets incorporated into future documents. So if there's a question that needs to be asked, they typically will ask it. It's recorded, and then we get that answer, and then that's incorporated into future documents moving forward. And so we go from application review committee to the public hearing by the IDB and the vote on the EIP. Again, that's where the legal document that says, we think we're doing a TIP, we're not sure yet, but this is a legal document, and here are the items that need to be debated and reviewed. And that would come before this board November 3rd. And then passing and voting of it from the IDB then goes back to city. And if appropriate, it would go to county for review and approval, and then the TIP's in place. And then after that, there's a development agreement. That typically would happen late December, January. I think we've had one that's gone to March or so. And then that kind of goes over the parameters, the development, what it looks like, the drawings, all of those pieces. Perfect. And then I'll have the developer come up and talk a little bit about the sewer piece.
Thank you. There's another presentation in there. Can you switch to it? Sorry. John Michelle, CBL Properties. Appreciative of the board today and the opportunity to speak to you all. Sharita, thank you for your presentation. Perfect. That's the right one. As the city stated, we are seeking a developer-backed TIF. We are proposing to finance the work with a reimbursement funded by real estate tax and sales tax. The proposed sales tax contribution would be capped and limited to new retailers that will open on the former Sears land. Retailers that are already under development and will open later this year. Well, I'll keep going. With our comments today, we intend to provide some additional color to the city's presentation and to address some questions that have come up. Northgate Mall has long served
We have this right in front of us,
Yes.
this one?
So we did pass out the presentation to the IDB members.
How do I,
Let's see. Oh, perfect.
right and left, huh? Okay, great, thank you, sorry for the interruption. Northgate Mall has long served as a cornerstone of the Hickson community and was built prior to Hickson's incorporation into the city, as Sharita mentioned, during a time when public services were not available. This means that to support the mall's development, a private system had to be constructed. I would like to note that had the mall been built a few years later, the system would have been designed, constructed, and dedicated to the city. As the corridor has grown, it became necessary for this private system to expand to serve other businesses and landowners. Now, this failing private infrastructure system serves not just the mall, but 12 other adjacent properties and nearly 20 other businesses. CBL purchased the mall in 2011, and since then, we've invested over $40 million in and around the mall. Tens of millions of additional dollars have been invested by others on parcels surrounding the mall and to the benefit of the community. However, like many aging retail centers, the campus now faces a critical challenge: its infrastructure, particularly the water and sewer systems, both outdated and still privately owned. As a critical infrastructure system that serves not only the mall property, but 12 additional properties owned by other entities, a failure of the system would create a significant disruption for all of the businesses served by the system, including businesses such as TJ Maxx, Aubrey's, Cava, Miller's Ale House, and many others. In the years since CBL purchased the mall, the retail industry has changed significantly. Malls similar in size and market position have had to evolve. Anchor stores on our campus, such as JCPenney, Sears, and Burlington, have closed. National retailers inside the mall, such as Children's Place, Victoria's Secret, Kay Jewelers, GNC, Justice, Christopher, and Banks have also closed. Simply put, the mall in its current format is not sustainable. The financial impact is real and detrimental to the city. As the city stated, the real estate taxes related to the campus have declined from a peak of $1.1 million in 2017 to $575,000 in 2024. This is nearly a 50% decline. We reinvested in the property by redeveloping around the periphery and working to preserve its value and tax revenue. But we have reached the limit of what this existing infrastructure system can support. The combination of the deterioration of the existing retail format in this location, coupled with the costs associated with the failing private infrastructure, make meaningful redevelopment that aligns with the city's existing vision for the area, as outlined by One Chattanooga, Plan Chattanooga, and Chattanooga Regional Planning Agency, impossible without public-private partnership. I want to reiterate, a meaningful redevelopment of the enclosed mall cannot support a public infrastructure project that serves 12 additional property owners and numerous other businesses. This is infrastructure work that the city needs to support its businesses and its taxpayers. To address this, CBL, in partnership with the City of Chattanooga, is proposing a developer-backed TIF. Importantly, this is not a request for existing public funds. CBL would fund the improvements upfront, assuming 100% of the financial risk, with 100% of the TIF being repaid by new revenue generated from the ongoing development on the former Sears parcels once they are reassessed. Once complete, the new infrastructure would be dedicated to the City of Chattanooga and the Hickson Utility District. The benefits of this proposal are immediate and tangible. The improvements will help stabilize a tax base that has eroded significantly over the past decade and create new revenue streams for both the city and the county. The project is a strategic investment in public infrastructure that supports existing businesses, prevents urban sprawls, and aligns with long-term planning goals for the Hickson corridor. In this proposed public-private partnership, with work being completed by the developer, the city avoids the complexity of managing the project, the city bears none of the financial risk, gains a modern utility system necessary to continue to effectively and safely serve its customers, and the community will get a revitalized commercial center. A future revitalization of Northgate Mall hinges on this infrastructure work. Without it, the future of the mall is bleak and likely to be repurposed into low-value uses such as self-storage that do little to support surrounding businesses, create jobs, or generate meaningful tax revenue. This is not alarmism. It's reality as seen in other communities. Malls that lacked coordinated public-private investment have become blighted and underutilized. There are numerous examples of malls being returned to lenders and public entities needing to step in and purchase parcels just to prevent further decline. Chattanooga has an opportunity to avoid a negative outcome by supporting a plan that stabilizes the tax base, protects public infrastructure, and positions Northgate Mall for meaningful community-centered development. Ultimately, this proposal is about more than just Northgate Mall. It's about preserving essential city services to the nearly 20 existing businesses, ensuring that Hickson continues to grow in a way that benefits everyone, residents, businesses, and the city alike. CBL is invested in this project and the future viability of the Northgate campus, a future that will only be possible if this critical infrastructure work is completed. As I'd mentioned at the beginning, we are seeking a developer-backed TIF. CBL will be financing the work and taking the risk. Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, if you may. Mr. Michelle, CBL Properties owns this particular piece of property. Do I understand that correct?
We own the middle of the property, the mall portion of the property, and we own some of the parcels around the property, but not all of the parcels.
Okay, well, since the resolution is explicitly dealing with Hickson Mall LLC and B1 Developments LLC, explain for us, who are those people?
Hickson Mall LLC is the entity that owns the mall, the enclosed mall. There are 12 other properties around the campus, one of which is BI Developments LLC, which CBL is a managing member. So the idea is that CBL's entities, the mall, will pay for all of the infrastructure that supports the mall and the other businesses around the mall.
Does CBL have an ownership interest in Hickson Mall LLC?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry if that wasn't clear.
Okay.
Does it also have an investment in the BI? Is it
Yes.
BI? Okay. Because all those are attached, correct?
All of the parcels are taxed?
Can you go back to the
I'm sorry.
previous slide?
So 13 and 10 are the two entities making the application.
Right. It looks like they're attached to me.
This is not a clear parcel map. It's a utility map with an overlay. They are adjacent to each other, that is correct, but they're separately owned entities. CBL purchased 10 from J.C. Penney when J.C. Penney closed.
So, excuse me. So to clarify, this would benefit all of these parcels, is kind of what we're saying. You're just the applicant, but this is going to be beneficiary, obviously, to all of the surrounding members. They're not going to have access separately to this. It's going to be a public utility now.
That's correct. So just to restate it and explain it again, all of these parcels are served by the private line
Right.
owned by the mall.
Okay.
The mall entity, which is owned by CBL, and they're all served by this private line today. They're served by the private line. They pay the city and the Hickson Utility District. And so what we are talking about is putting new public lines to serve all those customers and to serve the mall. The economic challenge for the mall is that property number 13 in the middle cannot support the infrastructure project that benefits all of the existing businesses. It's too much money for 13 to support.
And there won't be any kind of additional expense to those surrounding businesses for this work. It's just all going to be financed through this TIF project.
That's the way it's proposed, correct?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So one question I have is about the road. So is there a plan for the Northgate Mall Drive loop? Because that's privately owned, correct?
That is correct,
By CBL.
yes. There's not a plan proposed as part of this scope of work. I think when we look forward, when you think about redeveloping it into a mixed-use town center, that will have to be considered as part of improvements in order to achieve the vision that we're looking forward to.
I assume some of the infrastructure is underneath that road.
That's correct.
So that's just one, I mean, that would be one concern I would have generally. I mean, I think that's something that needs to be looked at as part of the EIP. You know, I just know that road's been talked about at least since 2013, since I've been involved in any local government. It seems like it would be short-sighted not to transfer that road to make it a public road as part of this process.
So we have looked at that, and I don't think that there's enough width on the road in order to comply with the public road standards that the city requires. But it's been a while since we've looked at that, and we definitely can take another look at that while we're in the process. I think we would love for it to become a public road. I'm just not sure that it can become a public
If
road.
it's going to be in the middle of a TIF district, I would say it's a great time to look at that road.
It's a great point.
And of course, city council has the ability to waive road standards as they see fit. It's my understanding.
Okay.
It's got to be 26 feet normally for fire trucks.
Yeah.
Good comment.
Another question, and this may be for Sharita. Have we asked PFM to do their third-party review? That would be a suggestion I would have. You know, they do this, they look at this kind of work regularly. I would think from an infrastructure standpoint, they would be able to help with projections for, especially with sales tax. I mean, that's the one that's going to be, in my mind, the biggest question is what those projections might look like.
Hi, I'm not Sharita. I'm Betsy Knotts with Bassberry and Sims. I'm on the TIF legal team with Mark Mamontoff. And so we have been talking with Water Street Public Finance Group, and we have proposed an engagement with them to do the third-party review. They are very familiar with doing TIF reviews. I think they did one for the Rivergate Mall recently. They've also been involved in some out in Knoxville as well. So I think they're well-equipped. And based on his workload, he's able to turn it around pretty quickly, which is kind of important for this project. But PFM is fabulous, and I think they should always be engaged as the city's financial advisor to review projections and anything related to the financing.
And Betsy, what's your last name? I'm sorry.
Knotts.
Knotts.
Knotts, like
And
Don Knotts.
Okay, got you. And what's your take on Ms. Sharp's concern about the, she had two prongs,
Oh,
as
the
I understood, a sales tax? What's your take on
Yes, so we've
that?
already drafted that legal opinion. That was something we looked heavily into before we got to this part of the process. It's separate from the TIF statute, so I think that's where there's some confusion. We're relying on 753, 315. It's a completely separate statutory provision for jurisdictions that have central business improvement districts, which Chattanooga has. They have the ability to grant through their IDBs revenues other than ad valorem tax revenues. So that includes all types of sales tax, local option sales tax. Here, we're being more conservative and just using the increment. So the statute would allow the IDB to utilize essentially citywide local option sales tax that's available. But here, we're just using from the property directly an increment portion of the sales tax. So I think once people understand that there's legal authority for it and we're being very conservative here, they'll probably be more comfortable. But yes, we've already drafted that legal opinion.
Betsy, I may be wrong, but isn't that the same situation for the stadium sales tax?
No. I don't want to talk off the cuff about the stadium, but I don't think that's what we use there.
I just know a certain portion of sales tax.
Yes. And I think the stadium was a brownfield. And
Yeah,
so,
you're right.
yeah.
Will you provide us a copy of that legal?
Yes, it's just not finalized yet, but yes, we'll be signing off on all of this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I only had one more question. For the term of the TIF, is the 20-year term determined based on projections of when it'll pay back? I just wonder why not 15?
Yeah, it is projected based on a conservative underwriting of a payback, and it is also not it assumes that there's no increment associated with the middle of the mall. So I think it's our goal, and that hopefully our stated goal and our desire would be to pay it back a lot sooner with additional development that comes online in the middle of the property. But it guarantees that it will be paid back with what's underway.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to have one for Ms. Knotts on here. The only issue, and I guess we need to probably, there's no AG opinion on this, at least, is there, as to the use of 753, 315 for sales tax?
No, there's no AG opinion on that.
And I was wondering, because it specifically is talking about situations where there is a central business improvement district, and this is outside the central business improvement district.
Right, it's a pure statutory construction analysis, and it does not require that the property be within
it.
the central business. And I did look at the legislative history. It dates back to 2010 when this was originally enacted.
Right.
And it really is a focus on pure public infrastructure. And for communities that have these central business improvement districts, they're obviously focused on revitalizing areas of their city. So it fits as a policy matter. And they may have extra funds outside of their, ad valorem taxes that are available to be used to put in new sidewalks and, whatever type of infrastructure is needed in certain parts of the city. So there is a special carve out, I think, for parking facilities and
Parking or
sports
sports
facilities.
yes.
Those have to be in the center city area, but all other public infrastructure is eligible. It does not have to be in the center city area.
And this, I guess, sewer system that was developed was before the Clean Water Act occurred, and because of that, was initially going into the river with a private system. So it is, since that time, has been hooked on to our regional wastewater system here. So outside of this area, it is being treated at this point in time much differently than it would have been in 1968. So the city and the regional area has provided that level of improvement. But we're also talking about 5,575 linear feet of sanitary sewer that is in connection with this TIF, which is a whole lot of pipe underground that's got to go. And if that pipe is going underground, there may also be disruption to the roadways or whatever area it's going in. So just think of that as you're looking at an economic improvement plan.
One other thing, Ms. Knott,
Yeah.
clarify for us, who's paying you and your firm for your services in connection with this project?
So we have an engagement with Chattanooga, that's how it works. And then if the project goes through, the developer does pay our fees.
And ultimately, the developer does?
Yes,
Okay.
but we are ethically and, binding to representing the city in the industrial
Okay.
development board. And we enjoy that.
And we will try to make sure they do a good job.
Any other questions from the board?
So just to clarify, I'm sorry.
You can.
So this is just kind of like, we're just approving that we're gonna move to the next phase of the application process. We're gonna move forward, so we'll have, the opportunity for more questions. Like I said, we'll have that, Powell going over everything, all of the details for this application review. Okay, I just want to clarify, we're not really approving any movement, we're just approving process.
Absolutely, yeah. And like Sharita said, the economic impact plan public hearing is on, or will probably be on November 3rd. And that's sort of the high-level document. We always call it like the constitution of the agreement. It just sort of guides the process to get city and county approval if we can. And then after that's done, the TIF is established and we put all the details in a development agreement.
Gotcha.
So this is just the very beginning.
Melody?
Yes, I had a couple of just minor questions. So the timeline, we think with November 3rd being the public hearing, we think we'll be able to get a third-party review by that?
Yes.
Okay. And the timeline, there's two different timelines. I don't know who, are we sticking with the one that you went over, Sharita? This other one is not one that we're considering? Because it's a much faster.
So there may be a second timeline for the North River Commerce Center project.
Oh, yes, okay, that's what I got confused
Right,
about. So this is the timeline, okay.
Highly unusual, but yes, we have two TIFs before us at the same time. Never
Okay,
happened.
similar areas. That was my one. Okay, that's actually all I had.
Yeah, and your current resolution here on the second page in section 2 has actually got the reference to 411 applicant affidavit and third-party reviews. We need to strike that, I think, at least as an amendment here on this resolution. That's go on the prior form because the city council's action this past week allowed that to be done. So I would recommend that you make I guess, a motion to amend to strike the last one.
Where are you, Phil? Where?
Unstrike?
On the second page of your resolution.
It's the actual resolution on which you'll be voting, and so we want to strike the waiving of the third-party review because
Correct.
council did not approve that.
Correct.
So you would be approving the item with the amendment to strike that.
We didn't learn about that until September the 30th, so that's where we are. All right.
That happened last week.
So if there aren't any more questions, are there any more questions? So for item A, for this number 7 on our agenda, so we are obtaining a resolution to accept the application and the attachments, and then also with this amendment to 411, applicant affidavit and third-party review being striked. So we'll entertain.
Make a motion that we approve the resolution with the striking of the 411. I think it's correct on what I'm reading
Yeah,
here
that's-
on this
Resolution
waiver.
looks correct. I
That's
think it's been updated.
We did send out
Second page,
Second page.
section 2,
I don't see 4
Yours
reference.
isn't right?
already gone?
And
Okay.
the chairs changed and everything,
It's
so.
gone in the new packet.
Wow, okay. My package has still got it.
Our package still has
Section
it.
2 waiver. Yeah.
Okay, so I think the copy me and you have.
Okay,
You talking about the one
4.2 and
in red?
4.6.
Right here?
that's it. It's those two, that's all.
Okay, perfect. So so we have the correct resolution, yes?
In an amended packet, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Other
So
than
can
the
you
name
do
of the
that?
secretary,
That's what I
that will
thought when he
be
was talking.
changed, but other than that.
Okay.
Repeat your, your motion.
I say, I make a motion that we approve the resolution accepting the application from the Hickson Mall LLC and the BI Developments LLC for the tax increment incentive, authorizing the submission of the tax increment incentive application for the Northgate Mall redevelopment project to the Chattanooga City Council and Hamilton County Commissions to adopt the resolution of intent to consider the economic impact plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Resolution passes. For section B of this, we need to have a resolution of the Board of Directors of the IDB and of the City of Chattanooga to set an application review committee meeting on or about October 20th, 2025, to review the application for the public infrastructure improvement to support the revitalization of the Northgate Mall. So we need to identify 2 people, right?
Yeah.
That are available on October 20th.
Yeah, and 2 people that are available, and just appoint those as the representatives of the Industrial Development Board. And we were looking through our minutes concerning this matter, and the only appointments that I saw was June the 5th of 2023. And by your requirements on here, the application, the board has to be appointed 2 members before the end of each calendar year for the following year. So I think you need to do that at this point in time.
So is,
So it would be through the end of June, you're saying?
Well, you know, it says that before the end of the calendar year for the following year.
Okay, yeah.
And the last time I saw an appointment was June 5th, 2023. If there's a more recent one than that, y'all let me know.
And so, Board, what we're asking is for 2 representatives from the board to serve on the application review committee. We anticipate that it is roughly, I would say, a 4-hour commitment. There's a 2-hour meeting, but we send you all of the materials ahead of time that we would ask the 2 members to review. And so it would look like the application packet, all of the attachments, reviewing all of that before arriving to the meeting, and then sitting through the 2-hour meeting to ask the developer, the finance team, and the city staff any questions related to the proposed TIF. And so that meeting we're proposing is October 20th, and that would be from 9:30 to 11:30 in council committee room, recognizing this board would have 2 representatives, the city council is appointing 2, the mayor's appointing 2, and then the chamber will have a representative as well.
Madam Chairman, this is in my district, so I don't know if you can take volunteers.
Yes.
yes, we're open. Yes.
That wasn't addressed to me, but yes.
Oh, does it need to be to you?
So we'll now elect those 2 members. So I'm hearing one recommendation. Is there a second recommendation?
You want to do it, Mark?
I'll break it the week before. I'll be on a cruise, Disney cruise. Otherwise, I'll do it.
Yeah, October 20th at 9:30, from 9:30 to 11:30.
Wait, you're passing up application review committee for a Disney cruise?
Come on.
I don't mind to attend. I think I was the representative at the last.
There you go.
Okay.
So Nadia and James would be our 2 representatives. Is there a second for them? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Perfect.
Great,
And
thank
so-
you 2 for representing us on October 20th at the application review committee meeting.
And so has the board officially selected October 20th as the committee meeting date? It's just a motion and a second unless your council says otherwise.
I'll make a motion to accept October the 20th, 2025.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great.
This will be a notice meeting as well, won't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, board.
Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on to our next item, a public hearing for the economic impact plan for the development of the North River Commerce Center Industrial Park. This is a resolution of the Board of Directors of the IDB of the City of Chattanooga approving a second amendment to the economic impact plan for the development of the North River Commerce Center Industrial Park and the redevelopment of the North Access Road, and submitting the amendment to the City Council and County Commission for approval.
All right. Well, good morning.
Morning.
I'm Winston Brooks, Economic Development Director for the City of Chattanooga. It's a pleasure to be here before you today to talk about a great project that many of you are probably familiar with. It's the North River Commerce Center. And it was alluded to in Sharita's comments earlier about some other TIFs that have been successful in the community with some of the, I think there's $9.4 million in public utility infrastructure that's been associated with that project, with the road alignment, Riverwalk easement, and infrastructure there. So the reason that we're here today is to, for the North River Commerce Center resolution. It's basically an administrative change to an economic impact plan, which was finalized in 2022. Because it's an amended economic impact plan, the change must come before the City Council and the IDB to be voted on later this month. Today's the public hearing. So the slide in front of you there, those are the parcels. Two of the parcels have been developed currently and are very successful, have met their capital investment as well as the jobs requirement. They've exceeded their job requirement. So basically been 400,000 square feet of Class A industrial space built there. There's $9.4 million of public infrastructure. This new space is partially occupied. The other space is fully occupied. And then what has happened is that along the way, the logistics sector has experienced a downturn, and there's some other macroeconomic issues that have caused the need for this type of large facility to change. And so that's why we're here to look at how to amend this economic impact plan so that it can continue to be successful. And so the solution is to amend the TIF economic impact plan to broaden the scope of the project to include additional commercial uses, extending the deadline to complete the full build-out by 5 years, and also adding some additional performance requirements. And then these changes will also help support some financing for the developer. So as I mentioned, it's actually kind of interesting if you're not familiar with the Great Freight Recession. That was sort of the start in 2022 when things started to take a downturn, and then it just continued. And so now we want to extend the construction deadline to December 31st, 2031 from December 31st, 2026. And we also want to put in an additional performance requirement. This original economic impact plan was written with a very narrow scope. And so the only performance requirement was 800,000 square feet of Class A industrial warehouse like you see today. And so we're asking that that be changed to also include $100 million of capital investment. So those would now be two performance requirements that would be added. And then also we want to broaden the scope to include other commercial types of businesses, not just industrial. But that commercial has been carved out, and so it's going to go from distribution only to additional commercial uses with restrictions. So that means no hotels, no retail, no gas stations, no vape shops. And then if there is an item that's not specifically called out, it would come back before the IDB. So for example, think of office spaces and lab spaces and things like that that have had some interest out there, but because of the way the TIF is written, or the economic impact plan, you can't do it. So most of you are familiar with what an economic impact plan. I love what Council Betsy Knotts referred to it as the constitution of the financing agreement. So I do like to refer to these as increment financing, not to focus on the front end, but the economic impact plan is really what it affects the development. And so it identifies the boundaries, which we just looked at with those spaces, and some of them across the river, some of them north of the road. It also identifies the industrial park or project located within the area, so there has to be a project, and those construction of those buildings would be the project. And then you have to discuss the benefits to the city, as well as identify where the increment and what parcels those increments are going to come from. So that's kind of the high-level overview of what an economic impact plan is. It does require a public hearing, which we're at today. It must be approved by the City Council and the County Commission, and it's the final step for that TIF approval. And it may be amended. We all kind of are familiar with this chart now. I think it was covered earlier, but that's basically how the increment is generated. But it does stabilize the base, and that's important for many projects. In terms of policy project alignment, this North River Commerce Center Industrial Park does align with all of the planning that's taken place within the city of Chattanooga, including the Chattanooga One Vision Plan, the RPA plan, as well as the Chamber's Climb Higher plan. So it fits in well with the strategy that we're all aware of. And then this has a little shorter timeline, since it's an amended EIP. It doesn't require as many steps as a new application. So here we are on the 6th. We presented to the city council to make them aware of the project. And then we'll be preparing for a vote on October 28th to amend the North River Commerce Center Economic Impact Plan. That's a mouthful. NRCC EIP. And then finally, on November 3rd, it'll be finalized with the IDB votes on the amended development. And that's it. Do we have any questions? Otherwise, I'll ask the developer to step up.
Any questions?
Clarify, this is to extend from a 15-year to a 20-year TIF, right?
So, it's going to remain a 20-year TIF. They're extending the deadline of construction within that 20 years and moving it out from December of 26 to December of, December of 2026 to December of 2031. So that's that 5-year shift. And I'll let the developer speak on that too. Any other questions for me? Let me make sure your presentation. Thank you. I'll make sure.
Good morning, or good afternoon now, I guess, technically. My name's Matt Phillips. I'm managing partner of Rise Partners. First of all, I want to thank the board for your support from the beginning. Many familiar faces from when we first talked about this in 2022. Some of you are new. But without the support of the board, the city, the county, we are still looking at a blighted property on Access Road instead of what's really become a hub for business, industry, and jobs. So I want to thank you from the get-go. We think what's happened at North River Commerce Center is a model for public-private partnership. And so what have we done since 2022 when we had a groundbreaking? Well, we've invested $50 million in Class A industrial space, one of which is here on the screen. That's Building 100, now fully occupied, and I'll talk about that here in a moment. We've invested $9.4 million in public infrastructure, some of which has already been mentioned, but the North River Soccer Complex now has full access to a new road at a signal, which is great. I get to use that myself when I go see my nephew play soccer. So, and then there's been some road improvements along Access Road, utility improvements. As I mentioned to the city council, this infrastructure was put in place just after World War II. So it was much of the underground infrastructure wasn't able to be utilized for this type of redevelopment. So the TIF, the public-private partnership that we established, allowed those things to occur. Let's see if I can figure this out. There we go. That's what it looked like before. We touched a little bit on that before, if you were there at the groundbreaking. Big empty parking lot, the old softball fields that were covered in kudzu, graffiti everywhere, that sort of thing. And then also acres upon acres upon acres of good rail-served M1 land that was literally locked behind barbed wire fence that this TIF was able to unlock for future development. And for us, those of us in the real estate business, good M1 rail-served land in Chattanooga is hard to find, really, really hard to find. And so we were able to unlock that with this public-private partnership. The beginnings of the after look like what's on the screen. We're not finished here. That's why I'm standing in front of you today. But I am excited to say again that Building 100 is fully occupied. That's the building on the top here. And what's interesting is the makeup of those businesses that are in that building are exactly what we'd hoped they'd be. It's a mix of businesses that we were able to retain in Chattanooga because of our project. It's businesses that are new to Chattanooga because of our project. And in one case, it's a business that's new to the United States. Prelco is a Canadian manufacturing group that was able to plant a flag in Chattanooga, their first manufacturing operation because of this project. And so very proud of that. And we also, and this has already been mentioned, but I'll say it again, we're also ahead of schedule on jobs from what was expected and the economic impact plan back in 2022. So all good stuff, all good news from that perspective. So again, I can't thank you enough for your support. And if I may, I'll touch on the question that was asked. Again, this is not extending the life of the TIF. This was a 20-year TIF to begin with. It's going to remain a 20-year TIF. Inside the documents was a construction completion date of December of 2026. The request is to extend that construction completion date to 2031 so that there's not what we would think would be a premature clawback. So I'm here to answer any other questions. Thank you so much for all your support.
Any questions for Mr. Phillips?
I have one. When you revise the scope and general description, so are we going to be adding a different type of structure into this area? So right now you have these large facilities, and so is it going to kind of restructure the type of buildings you're going to put in over there?
Not outside of the intent of the project to begin with, I would say. I mean, we always, I've mentioned the M1 land that's rail served. I mean, that's great manufacturing opportunities. But if we were to just use a hypothetical example, based off the letter of the agreement, if we were to do a deal with a seatbelt manufacturer that's going to make seatbelts for Volkswagen and manufacture it right there on site and have rail come pick it up and create a bunch of really good jobs. Well, underneath the definition of the project, that's not allowed. If we were to recruit a great laboratory space, good high-paying jobs for scientists and others, which is actually somebody that approached us for Parcel C, it's not allowed. And so I kind of joked in front of the city council that we were all moving very fast in 2022, but we didn't have a great crystal ball around that language. In hindsight, we should have been more broad about how we defined the project. The project was really defined as industrial distribution, and that's very limiting when you think about what could potentially be done and what would be great for the community.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Thank you.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you.
What happened to the public hearing?
Oh,
It was advertised as a public hearing.
okay. My apologies. Anybody from the public wish to speak?
Helen Burns Sharp, Accountability for Taxpayer Money. I supported this project in 2023. I support this amendment. And I will say, as an aside, it's really nice to have a normal TIF in Chattanooga. And this is one. I think it's been a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Anybody else wish to address a word about this? All right. Thank you very much. The public hearing is closed.
Madam Chairwoman, I apologize, but I've got to step out.
Yeah, we're running. Thank you. Okay, our next item, High Growth, High Jobs Incentive Grant, a resolution amending the Industrial Development Board resolution dated July 14th, 2025 for the Master Machine High Growth, High Jobs Incentive to change the definition of wage amount of new employees in the amount of $58,639 to match the higher wage in the amount of $72,330, as previously referenced in Exhibit A of the agreement and accompanying staff report.
Terrific.
Thank you, Sharita, for addressing this item.
Thank you. This is an administrative item. After this item was passed in July of 2025 by this Industrial Development Board, we discovered when the documents were signed that there was an incorrect wage amount in the definition section. And so this is an administrative clerical revision to fix that error. And so again, the amount that was listed is lower than the higher required amount. And so this just replaces that in the definition. And then we will we will have a new agreement that needs to be signed by the chair or representative of the board. And then it will go back to the company for signature as well. And so there is not, and I will ask our staff counsel whether we need a vote on this or whether it's just a clerical fix.
So you're just making a clerical change in the amount for the money that they actually provided, which is more than they said they would do. I think that's just a clerical issue here for this body.
Okay, perfect.
And report it to this body.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next item, Bridge COVID-19 Revolving Loan Fund, a resolution authorizing the chair or vice chair to execute a letter addressed to the Southeast Tennessee Development District requesting repaid IDB Bridge COVID-19 Revolving Loan Funds to be returned to the City of Chattanooga IDB Fund account number NR14 for the approximate amount of $358,000.
Okay, board, this item is a follow-up to the item where this board allocated $1.5 million in economic development fees to the One West Side project. And as part of that, we covered in our overview that we had additional funds that would be coming back into the board that would replace some of those funds that were being sent out. And so this is one of those. And so I think Eleanor Lou earlier mentioned the C&E funds that have come back in. And so these are funds that are also going to come back in, but we have to send an official letter requesting those funds move back from Southeast Tennessee Development District over to the IDB. And so we at this point just need for the board to authorize the chair or vice chair to sign a letter requesting the funds be moved over. Just the checks and balances on the financing. Staff is not allowed just to go to the IDB and ask them for money.
And this does need action by this board to make sure that the comptroller is satisfied with how that works. Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I'll entertain motion.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion passes. Our next item, Southern Champion Tray Pilot, a resolution authorizing the Industrial Development Board to convey and transfer certain real and personal property and to take further action in connection with the termination of certain lease agreements and agreements of payments in lieu of tax, ad valorem taxes in connection with certain Southern Champion Tray projects.
Terrific, thank you. Board, this is an administrative item again, and so this happens whenever a pilot reaches the end of its term. And so once those incentives reach their end, because the properties are held within the IDB, once the incentive is over, the IDB has to transfer those properties back over to the legal entity that applied for them. So this is just a moving of the property out of the Industrial Development Board and back into Southern Champion Tray.
And the good news is that after that occurs, normal taxes will be required to be paid for these properties. And while it's with the IDB and there are not normal taxes, that is the payment in lieu of tax that is paid. Didn't vote.
A motion, entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Great, thank you, motion passes. The next item, E2I2 project, a resolution rectifying action taken by the Vice President to execute a sanitary sewer easement and temporary construction easement with VTR Shallowford LLC for property located at 7127 Lee Highway related to the E2I2 project.
I make a motion to approve this resolution. I'm assuming this is just for property for the project that we'll hold, correct?
Yes, it's a sanitary sewer easement that needed to be done, and the vice chair has already signed it, so that's the reason you need to have ratification.
Yeah, make a resolution to ratify that action.
Second, is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Just a couple of other business items. The first one is an update on the June 2nd, 2025 agenda approving Chattanooga Chamber of Commerce requesting the amount of $70,000 as a funding match for a site selector LED competitive analysis. The IDB was invoiced under budget in the amount of $60,000 as a final cost. The IDB retains the previously committed amount of $10,000.
Good. No, I guess you want to, if anyone has a question about whether you want to keep the additional 10,000, you could ask that, but beyond that, it's just a clerical number.
Anybody have any questions on that one?
And staff, board, staff is bringing this to your attention just because when the IDB awarded this amount, it had awarded an amount up to 70, and so it came in under, and I just wanted to report back that it came in under.
Thank you.
Nice.
I think Ms. Lou covered the section B in her report. Are there any other questions about that? I know Ms. Lou covered that. Okay, the last thing I wanted to do before we adjourn was to recognize Brent. I probably should have done that at the beginning, but Brent is our newest member representing District 9. Thank you for being here. We had a lot to cover on this meeting agenda, but appreciate you being here. Welcome you to our group, and if you have anything you wanted to say, I'll open it up.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to serve. Look forward to working with all of you.
Great. All right. Anybody have anything else before we adjourn?
Sure they remember October 20th.
Thank you too for agreeing to represent us October 20th. And so I know you will do well, and let us know, report back anything that you have for us. So again, thank you for doing that. All right. Thank you all for sticking with us on this, today's meeting adjourned at 12:29. Thank you.